Welcome back to the deep dive. So, is Colleen Hoover's Ugly Love really worth all the hype? I keep seeing it everywhere, but the online chatter is, well, let's just say intense.
It's definitely a lightning rod.
That's putting it mildly.
Right. Some people are obsessed. Others are like, this book is straight up toxic. So we're going to dive deep into the reviews, the discussions, even some movie casting news
We've got it all.
to help you decide, is Ugly Love worth your precious reading time?
Yes. No more fence sitting. By the end of this deep dive, you'll know if Ugly Love is a must-read, a hard pass, or somewhere in between.
So spoiler alert, Ugly Love is polarizing.
Okay, getting straight to the point, I appreciate that, but why? Why are people so fired up about this book?
It comes down to a few things. First, Colleen Hoover's writing style. She's known for being very emotionally driven, really going there with the feelings.
Okay, so lots of feels, but isn't that like romance novel 101?
Sure, but Hoover takes it to another level. One reviewer, Eastus Book Blog, said they were completely swept up in the story, feeling every moment, like, viscerally.
Viscerally, huh? Okay, I'm intrigued, but still skeptical.
Fair enough. But it's not just the intensity of the emotions. It's the type of emotions Hoover focuses on: heartbreak, longing, even despair. And a lot of that stems from the choices her characters make, choices that many readers find, well, questionable.
Okay, so we're talking messy characters, bring on the drama.
Oh, there's plenty of drama. A lot of the controversy centers around Miles, the male lead. He's got a lot of baggage from his past.
Oh, wounded hero. Classic.
Right, but instead of, dealing with it in a healthy way, he pushes Tate, the female lead, away. It creates this whole dynamic that's full of pain and angst.
Pushing the love interest away. That's pretty standard romance fare, too. What makes Miles so different?
I think it's how deeply his past, specifically his relationship with a woman named Rachel, affects his present. One reviewer, Mel, said it made Tate feel like second best throughout the entire relationship.
Ouch. So it's not just a past he needs to get over. It's like a ghost hanging over everything.
Exactly, and you see similar themes in other books by Hoover, like Hopeless, which also deals with past trauma affecting relationships. But the reaction to Miles in Ugly Love is particularly divided.
Divided. How? Give me the dirt. I keep seeing people mention this My God, Rachel scene. Is that what we're talking about?
Yep, that's the one. It's a really intense, intimate moment between Miles and Tate where he calls out the wrong name.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And for a lot of readers, that was it. Unforgivable. It fueled this whole debate about whether Miles can even truly love Tate.
So Hoover's playing with fire here, huh?
Yeah.
It's like she's walking this tightrope between passionate romance and a potentially toxic relationship.
You hit the nail on the head. And that tension is reflected in the reviews. You have people like Angela912 on Goodreads who were just blown away by the raw emotion. Her review was all caps tearful.
Okay, I get that. A book that just grabs you, makes you feel everything. But what about the people who hated it?
Oh, there are plenty of those too. Like Yoon586, who found the writing style repetitive, even juvenile. They just couldn't stand the characters, especially Tate. They called her weak, frustrating. Even the formatting got called out. Too many italics, too many dramatic line breaks.
So it's a love it or hate it situation, strong opinions all around. Is this typical of Hoover's other books? Or is Ugly Love just that much of an outlier?
Well, Ugly Love is one of her earlier books. You can definitely see how her style has evolved since then. Like, compare it to It Ends With Us, which also tackles a difficult relationship, but maybe with a bit more nuance.
So even for Hoover fans, Ugly Love is a bit of a wild card, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely got that raw, unfiltered quality that can be a bit jarring for some readers.
You know, so many people wanted Miles to just go to therapy. Does the book even acknowledge that? Like, maybe it's trying to address trauma, but just not doing a very good job of it.
You're not alone in that thought. It's like, yes, we see the emotional wounds, but then there's this whole romanticization of Miles's self-destructive behavior, and that's where a lot of the criticism comes in.
Right, because it's one thing to present a flawed character, but it's another to make them the romantic lead and then ask us to root for them.
Right, and some reviewers were just not having it. Amen, for example, they pointed out the emotional complexity, but still felt frustrated by the character's choices. It's like, I want to root for these people, but...
But they just keep making terrible decisions.
Exactly, and then it raises this whole other question, what message is this sending, especially to younger readers who might not have the life experience to see the red flags?
Ooh, that's a good point. Because if you're reading this and thinking, oh, this is what love looks like.
Exactly. One reviewer, Whitney Atkinson, actually argued that ugly love perpetuates some really unhealthy relationship patterns and could actually be harmful to young women.
Wow. Okay, so this is getting deeper than just, like, is this book well written? It's about the potential impact, the messages it's putting out there.
Definitely. But it's also worth noting that a lot of the negative reviews still acknowledged how addictive the book is. Sasha Alsberg, for example, talked about devouring it in one sitting.
Okay, so it's a page turner, even if it's emotionally messy.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of can't look away from a car crash kind of read. Like, you know it's bad, but you're still hooked. Even Daniela, who called Miles shit,
No way, she actually said that.
straight up. And she criticized the book for romanticizing emotionally abusive men, but her review was still super passionate, full of detailed analysis. It clearly got under her skin.
Okay, so we've got intensity, drama, questionable characters, and a plot that just keeps you hooked. How's it all put together, though? Like, how does Hoover tell this story?
Well, she uses a dual narrative. You get Tate's point of view in the present and then Miles's perspective 6 years in the past.
Oh, interesting. So you're slowly uncovering the reasons behind his behavior.
Right. It's like peeling back the layers of his trauma and trying to understand, how he got to this point. And it definitely adds an element of mystery, too. You're constantly trying to piece together what happened in Miles's past, what made him so closed off.
So it's a slow burn in that sense.
Yeah, I think you could say that. The romance builds gradually as we learn more about Miles. But that approach didn't work for everyone. Some reviewers, like Jerry, felt the writing itself was actually a barrier.
Really? How so?
They thought the style, like all the line breaks and the overly poetic language, it actually detracted from the emotional impact. It was just too much.
Okay, so it's clear ugly love isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
But for those who are still on the fence, what should they consider before diving in?
I think the key question is, are you prepared for a truly messy, emotionally draining read? Because that's what Ugly Love delivers. It's not about escapism, it's about confronting the dark side of love, the scars it leaves behind.
So definitely not a beach read.
Not unless you want to spend your vacation sobbing into your margarita. It's a book that will stay with you, good or bad. And it sparked some really important conversations about healthy relationships, coping mechanisms, the role fiction plays, and how we understand love and trauma.
Right, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. Strong emotions, questionable characters, and a whole lot of debate. So, the million-dollar question. Should you read Ugly Love? What's the verdict?
That's the tricky part. We can't tell you what to do. It really comes down to what you're looking for as a reader.
So no easy answers.
Not with this one, but we can give you the information, the pros and cons, and hopefully that'll help you make an informed decision. Stick with us. We'll be back after a quick break to break it all down and deliver our final verdict.
Okay, we're back, and I'm ready for that verdict. Should our listeners dive into Ugly Love or run for the hills?
All right. No more teasing. Let's get straight to it. So, big picture Ugly Love is not for everyone.
That's what we've gathered. But who specifically should avoid it?
If you're looking for, like, a sweet, easy read, something to curl up with and just feel good.
A beach read.
Exactly. Ugly Love is the opposite of that. It's emotionally heavy. It deals with some dark stuff, trauma, grief, the just plain messiness of relationships. If you're sensitive to those topics or just prefer your romance a bit lighter, skip it.
Okay, so what about those of us who do like a bit of angst in our reading? Is it a guaranteed hit for them?
I would say guaranteed. Even if you like darker themes, Ugly Love really pushes boundaries. Like Miles, he's not your typical brooding hero. He makes some choices that, honestly, a lot of readers just can't get past, especially that my God, Rachel moment.
Well, we can't let that go unmentioned.
Right. If you need your romantic leads to be, morally perfect or always making good decisions, this book will probably just frustrate you.
So it's not just about liking emotional intensity. It's about being able to stomach some bad behavior.
Exactly. You have to be okay with flawed characters, with reading about situations that are messy and maybe even a little unhealthy. This is not a book that gives you easy answers or happily ever afters.
Okay, this is making me think of all those reviewers who were like, send Miles to therapy. Is that a valid criticism? Does Ugly Love kind of romanticize unhealthy coping mechanisms?
It's definitely something to consider. The book does explore the impact of trauma, but it also leans on some, let's say, Classic romance tropes, the idea that passionate love can heal all wounds, and that can be problematic, especially for readers who might be dealing with similar issues in their own lives.
Right, because a book can be entertaining, but it's not a therapist.
Exactly. It's important to remember that fiction is not always a reflection of reality, and what works in a story might not be healthy in real life. But even with those caveats, even with all the criticism, there's something about ugly love that just grabs people.
You mentioned earlier how some of the negative reviews were still, like, super engaged with the story.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Even people who hated it were still clearly affected by it. I think it speaks to the power of Hoover's writing. Love it or hate it, she knows how to make you feel things.
So she's doing something right.
She is. Ugly Love might not be a perfectly crafted masterpiece, and it definitely pushes some buttons, but it sparks conversation and makes you think. And for some readers, that's more valuable than just a feel-good story.
All right, so after all this back and forth, what's the bottom line? Should we read Ugly Love or not?
Here's the deal. If you want a light, fun, escapist read, no, hard pass. But if you're someone who enjoys diving into complex characters and messy situations, if you can handle emotionally charged writing and maybe some triggering themes, then Ugly Love might be worth checking out. Just go in with your eyes open, be ready to think critically, and form your own opinions.
That's great advice for any book, really. Don't just take someone else's word for it. Experience it yourself. Well, there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the world of Ugly Love, a book that's clearly not for everyone, but has definitely sparked some passionate debate. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy reading.